ghosts, psychics, pendulums, curses, hexes. We welcome you here to Friday Night Dark in the realm of the night. Come join us and listen to this week's presentation, and we bid you welcome.
Good evening. This is Drew, and I welcome you back to Friday Night Dark. Hey, tonight I'm going to be talking about caves. Now, I'm going to bring up a couple of words, and I'm going to be talking about a few places that I know my hooked on phonics pronunciation of certain words of great vocabulary might actually trip me up. But before I go there, I want you to picture something for a minute. There was a movie recently that came out. At the very beginning of this year, as a matter of fact, I talked about liminal spaces. And one of the things I touched on was the very idea that there was a concept in how that worked. And it was kind of like a transitional from what was to what is, and what was considered real and now wasn't. And then is. I know I'm being really weird about it, but here's why. Um, when I talked about liminal spaces, one of the stories and one of the things that came up was back rooms. Now, it was something that I didn't get at first, other than just what I had touched on and looked at. And then I saw that there was supposed to be a movie, but it was never set in stone if this is something that was going to take place. Voila. Fast forward, and that movie actually did, it emerged. There it was in theaters. And it's a predecessor to this was another one that kind of touches on the whole liminal space idea, and that was called Iron Lung. Now, if you haven't seen either of these movies yet, I'm going to tell you right now, I highly encourage you to go and watch them. And if you're wondering why I would tell you this, first offhand is that the Iron Lung production, that one, it actually had a very shoestring budget in terms of what Hollywood goes for these days with their blockbuster movies. And it made a ton, and I mean this, a ton of money from this small shoestring budget. And they they even had cameo appearances from other people. Now, the person who put this out, he goes by the name of Markiplier. And one of the people that was, I guess, like they're friends, but what's his name? Jacksepticeye, I believe, makes a cameo appearance in there too. But why this is important is that what was pulled together was this production of a game, and this game itself is one that it gained popularity somehow, and in the process it just was out there. If you know the game, then you know what happened next. Someone picked it up, somehow it got pitched, and then it became a production. Now, this isn't new. I mean, there are other ones that did the same thing. There's something for Halo. There's something for what is that one that uh, I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was a video game, and it turned into a movie long before this one. And I thought, hey, this actually looks pretty cool, but dude, it was a kind of a disappointment. My point being is that they had tons of funding and they had all kinds of resources. And here was someone who did something with very little and not only made it work, but then he was able to do a lot with it. Now, there are examples of folks who have done some things. There was a guy in Korea that actually took a whole bunch of iPhone 4s and he staged them in certain areas and made an action movie that did pretty well, from what I understand. And it was kind of a thing of, hey, instead of using regular cameras and steady cams that cost a ton of cash, let's go ahead and use something that is going to cost less, we can replace in a whim whenever, and then we just kind of edit all of the shots that we get from these all into one production. And they made it. Okay, so now I'm digressing, but it all ties together. The liminal spaces in that back rooms is something that, although contrived, it does present a very eerie feeling. Now this comes to where I'm coming from, is because in that surreal, artificially made environment, you would think, oh, there would never ever be such a place, would there? Well, that's where I probably would have to beg to differ with you. Now, enter what I would call an underground cavern that exists in Russia. More specifically, this area is it's in North Caucasus, Russia, and it's known for its unnaturally straight and polished subterranean area that was found. And people who explore caves, or what do they call them, speleologists, that comes from the word spelunking, which is cave exploring, quite literally. And I know that this has been something that's always been twisted and perverted in other ways that people would want to use, but at the end of the day, that's quite literally what it is. If you ever wanted to go into a cave and explore it, guess what you are? Yeah, that's you. You are a spelunkist and a speleologist or whatever. I know I'm being weird about that one, but it'll all come together. Now, I'm speaking about a place called Kara Khora. And one of the things about it is that it is basically this mountain range that does, in fact, house such a place that's like back rooms. And what makes it very interesting is that it was basically unknown for a very long time. And what makes it even more intriguing to anyone who bothers to look at it, I'm going to spell it to you, Khara and then Hora. Why am I doing this? Because I want you to Google this one. It really was kind of a thing of, is this art imitating life or life imitating art? You be the judge on that one. But this is one of the reasons why I brought it up, is that I kept thinking to myself, hey, where have I seen this before? I know. Believe you me, I couldn't have planned this if I wanted to, but here I am. So now, going back to the rest of this, I know there are similar sites that, we'll certainly get into those in just a second. But this particular one was due to a landslide. And what happened is that it was basically in I know I'm going to say all this wrong, so I apologize in advance, but it's Kabardino, and it's Balkaria, North Caucasus, Russia. So obviously, I don't know if I'd ever be able to get there, even if I wanted, and unless I had the resources that some of the folks out there that are very well-to-do have, I probably would never find myself there, ever. I think even they would have a little trouble because as the, I should say, current global political climate is, it's a little different these days, and I think it would be very difficult to get in there. But here we go. Now there is that Kharakhora mountain range, as I was talking about, which it's above a village in Zayukovo in the Baksan Gorge. And what happened is that there was a landslide that happened. This was in approximately 2011. And it happened overnight, so they just woke up one morning and everything kind of shifted. And I'm kind of used to this because there actually was, here in Utah, something similar where a mountain quite literally shifted. Thistle. Just go ahead and look it up. You'll see that a lot of things happen there. And a lot of people lost houses and what have you. It's kind of sad, but in this case, I guess it was something that was far enough. It didn't actually really harm anyone per se, but it did, make things different. But people got curious, and after the landslide, locals discovered, after going in and exploring, that there was in fact an underground shaft with a perfectly evened and polished walls that were descending about 40 meters, that's about 120 feet, before opening into a very larger chamber. Now, stop there for just a second, because this was buried. And then one day, out of nowhere, it just gets unburied. There's a landslide. There you go. And I know people are already saying, well, someone must have done something. It was all just a plan. It's like, okay, well, yeah, you're right. But why would you want to put something like this in the middle of nowhere? Wouldn't you want something like this to be discovered someplace that was a little bit more accessible? I mean, really, honestly, that's what I'm trying to get at here. This one has its own oddity, but it gets more. See, what happened was a lot of these speleological, I can't even say this word right, speleologists reported that the shaft was made of parallel stone slabs fitted at right angles, and it gives a very megalithic and artificial appearance. And this is where it gets weird, because I know that a lot of times people think, well, it's probably because something was done. It was all just hand chiseled. Okay, you're probably right. But in the way that it was constructed, it would also suggest that someone had to spend the time and then bury it without anybody ever noticing. And everyone would probably tell me, but they've got all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, they got underground bunkers and whatever. Like, yeah, okay, they probably do. But why would they not inhabit it? Why would they just have it there and then bury it? And I know that a lot of people will sit there and look at me funny, like, yeah. There's got to be a reason why you're mentioning on this. Well, because in the pictures that I actually found, there were places in there that looked like something straight out of a scene from Backrooms. And I thought for a moment, this is one of those liminal spaces that people talk about. Now, the structure is not associated with known temples, dwellings, or burial sites, and its purpose remains completely unknown. As a matter of fact, the whole thing was hewn in such a way that unless it was something that was supposed to be used and people decided to bag the idea and go on to something else, hasn't ever actually been, completely put out there. I mean, no one's ever given an answer than the fact that this place actually existed for a few thousand years and then it was forgotten. So, who built it? Why did they build it? Was it supposed to be a shelter? Was it supposed to be a place for people to exist? Well, this is where folks start to enter in these weird theories that it was alien made, meaning that, little green Martians in a flying saucer came up and said, hey, let's build an underground place here. And then they changed their mind. They buried it. Now, they might have the technology to do something like that. I don't know. But the actual place, the way it is, does actually make people think, oh, come on, that can't be. Well, yeah, I know. It's just something like that. Kara Khora in itself, it does have, a lot of stuff that makes people think that perhaps there was more to it than meets the eye. And perhaps there was a significance at one time, and maybe either it was forgotten or it was just an idea that was bagged and they just said forget it, or perhaps maybe it did provide shelter at one time and then they just made sure to hide the evidence. Unfortunately, time does two things. Time, as they say, heals all, and well, time also reveals all, no matter what. So guess what? That's what happened here. Now, you're probably thinking, are there other places like this? Well, of course there are. There are several sites around the world that share similar traits. There is the idea of megalithic engineering and subterranean structures, and in some cases they have unexplained precision stonework. Which places am I talking about? Well, there is Derinkuyu and the Cappadocia underground cities in Turkey. There's multi-level underground cities that are carved with extreme precision, and these have been around for a very long time, when those types of tools wouldn't necessarily exist. And of course, if you look at it from another point of view, they have ventilation shafts, long corridors, stone doors. And the purpose is basically for habitation, refuge, maybe for ritual, but I'd probably subscribe to the idea that it was some place to live. This was a refugee camp, if you think about it, and it goes underground. And although I don't know exactly how much of a sturdiness this place would be, if it was just something like, escaping the sunlight because the atmosphere in our Earth decided not to filter that UV light that's out there, this would definitely be a place to go, really. Now there's another place, Hypogeum of, what is it, Hypsiphyline in Malta. And this is a prehistoric underground temple complex with smooth, curved, acoustically tuned chambers. And it does have megalithic stonework with unknown construction methods. Now, think about it for a second. This is a prehistoric place. That means they didn't have any of the precision stuff we've got today. And it was put together. And it basically existed for thousands of years. And they've still yet to figure out how they did it. With the, I keep thinking about a TV show. I'm going to give a plug to Star Trek because I have to. And in this instance, what's on there for Star Trek is one infamous line from Mr. Spock, played by, of course, Leonard Nimoy. He said, "What I have done is I've created a computer with stone knives and bear skins." This actually comes from The City on the Edge of Forever. If you ever get a chance to watch it, it's one of my favorites. Watch it. Getting back to it, I just want you to know that here they did the impossible with stone knives and bear skins. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring all that up. And I think it's kind of cool because they've said, oh, this can't be. No, it exists. It's there. It's documented. You can look these places up, and there are pictures out there. And if you see any of them, you're gonna say, "What?" Yeah, that's precisely what I did too. And I in a lot of things that I've done, even when I was, highly discouraged over some things, I still did my research, and this is kind of the stuff I came up with. Now, there's also the Longyu Caves in China. They're massive hand-carved caverns with perfectly smooth walls, and they've got uniform chisel marks. There's no historical records explaining who built them or why, and they exist. So, thinking, okay, well, obviously these places are, they could be, geographically close to each other. No, but I'm going to continue because I know I need to give a few examples. Now, there is the Osirian, the shafts and vertical chambers in Osirian. This is in Abydos, Egypt. This is a subterranean megalithic hall that's built with enormous granite blocks. And it is an architectural style unlike the surrounding Egyptian structures. So this is something totally different. You think Egypt and people think, King Tut, and they got those funny little hats and doing those little, jagged, walks or whatnot. I even have that song, Walk Like an Egyptian. So I thought to myself, okay, I can see this, but no, it doesn't fit the motif for the other things that people think of. So if you ever find yourself, and I would probably want to go here, I would want to look at this place specifically, and for good reason, is that you have a structure, you have something that in fact has all kinds of, what's the word I'm looking for here, all kinds of things in it that show that somebody made this, and he did it with stone knives and bear skins. And they made something very precise. Now, the same thing can be said about the shafts at Giza in Egypt, is because they have a narrow, straight, precisely angled shafts that are inside the Great Pyramids, and it's proposed that it possibly could be for ventilation, but if you look closely, those shafts line up with the belt of Orion. Now, that's the one thing that was always, kind of said, and I think this is where a lot of people, what's that TV show, Stargate? Do they got some of their ideas from? Somebody spent a lot of time and research into this, but the problem is that they only touched on the Egyptian gods, some of the, what do you call it, the Viking mythos or whatnot, the Norse gods that were there, and I think they talked about a few other ones, and apparently they were something other than what they were supposed to be. They were nefariously slanted alien beings that had nothing but bad ideas for this whole thing. And this isn't the first time it's been suggested, because then you also have the Anunnaki, which they valued gold, and we became slaves for them because they genetically engineered us to actually do it, us meaning the human race. This was actually recycled in another book called Battlefield Earth, but hey, I just want to throw it out there. You'll have to read the book and understand the premise later, but I'm just going to continue what I'm doing right now. I know, I just want to talk away. Now, there's another place. There is the Yanaguni Monument in Japan. Now, here's the thing. This is underwater stepped terraces with sharp angles and straight lines. I've talked about stuff like this before, and I did talk about it when I touched on Bimini. And the reason why it's significant is because in this case, there's really no explanation. There have been people who've gone back and forth that this was a natural formation, and there's some people who said no, this was somehow human modified. But the problem is it was underwater. And so it begs to ask that question, and that is, was it there and then the ocean came later? Or was this something that they were like leftover blocks? Consider the fact that you have those statues that are out there on Easter Island. And so you have to wonder, did they happen to be leftovers? Did they make a whole bunch of stuff and go out there and plant them and carve them, and then they somehow managed to put these things deep into the earth on an island that has absolutely nothing to do with anybody? And even the story itself seems really, honestly, almost half-baked, and yet it is truth, meaning that this is something you can go out and verify. How it all comes together, I couldn't say, because there has never been a real explanation. There have been people who've suggested how they built certain things. This formation, people have gone back and forth on. So if you find someone who has an idea, listen to what they got to say, and then ask them, well, how did they prove that? Ask them. No, really. I mean, you don't have to start a fight with it. Just say, hey, I'm curious. How did they prove that? Or how did they come up with that idea? You're going to find out pretty quick. This is not something that is going to sit still anytime soon. The next one I'm probably going to mention here, and that's going to be the Sacsayhuaman. That's in Peru. Now, the thing about it is that these are walls. They're kind of megalithic with polygonal stones fitted so tightly that a blade can't pass between them. Now, this is significant for one reason. It's because someone took some rocks, okay, and they had hewn them in such a way when they come together, you can barely see the lines, and then you can't put anything in there to kind of wedge in there, unless you like literally deliberately try to destroy them. Now, you're not going to, because I think they're protected still, if I read it right. And I really honestly want to tell you, this is precision stonework that goes beyond local technology. And I know in some cases, even Kara Khora has subterranean engineering that really has no explainable purpose. There's no way to figure out why it's there. And the fact that it was even just, it was hidden should pretty much, tell you a lot. And Kara Khora fits into this whole idea. And that's what got me thinking and starting to look and saying, hey, are there other places like this? Why would it be there? Has there ever been an explanation? The answer in short is no, there wasn't. Because the fact is there's lack of historical documentation, there's really no way to figure out what it's all about. And this is why people started to venture in ideas that maybe ET got involved. Well, maybe. What if it was something? Remember when I talked about pre-existing civilizations? Places that there was evidence that suggested that there might have been civilizations on Mars at one time, that there might have been civilizations on the moon. that perhaps maybe it was still a space station. And perhaps if that was the case, that all of these places together might have been something, and we might have been even just a way station. I guess, how do you put it? A rest stop for ET to come by and look at the flora and fauna and say, oh, look at all those pretty apes, or whatever they want to call us. Look at what they're doing. That is so interesting. Yeah. And then they would just go on their way, and we might become I guess, a dinner time conversation that would just exist for a few moments and then go on. Yeah, I knew a couple of places that were that way. On Highway 66, what was it that it was a row of Cadillacs that were just kind of, shoved into the ground and whatnot. I forget if it was like what do they call it, Cadillac Stonehenge, or if it was something else. I thought it was interesting because I know some folks that talk about that, and usually it'll come up every so often, and then it goes away. So it may not happen once, it might happen a few times, but it's there. Why? Because, and that's not the first time you've had people who've done things with, weird types of rocks and stone formations. You're probably saying, what are you talking about? Well, there's one here. Actually, there's a few. But the one that I still think about is the one that's in Florida, and that's the Coral Castle. It was done by one man, and it was done practically overnight. No pun intended there. One guy did this, and he did it for his true love. And I had proposed the idea that perhaps maybe it was because he loved this person so much, he was willing to do all these miraculous things to attract them. And I even used an example of a really bad movie that I saw once, where this boy was in love with a girl so much that he was able to make things glow. And it was a really weird movie, but point being is that at the end of the day, it did kind of bolster the idea that perhaps that was why he was so motivated, that he might have done it just for that reason. But one thing for sure is that Kara Khora stands out, as I mentioned, not only because it was a recent discovery, meaning in 2011. That's about 15 years ago. But then you have that vertical polished shaft. And then, of course, it appears geometrically engineered. It's not even naturally eroded. And it sits in a region rich in folklore, mountains, and ancient cultural crossroads. So if you think about this for a second, I think that that whole idea, even though it's not alone, there are many places that I've mentioned here that have similar patterns of being made and really don't have much to explain themselves. You have to wonder, how did they do that? And then, of course, you're going to ask yourself, why? And if you can't answer those, well, then tell me, what's your theory? And I think that's part of the reason why I'm bringing this up, is that this whole idea of all these places together, they would, by themselves, someone might shrug them off and say, whatever. But now if you throw them all together, this makes you, it suggests perhaps that there might have been something else, whether it be extraterrestrial, or perhaps maybe it was terrestrial, and it was a civilization that existed long before I was even talking about it on this recording that you're listening to me on right now. So, what do you think? Do you think perhaps this whole idea of Kara Khora and other ones like it could have been made by something outside our world? Or do you think perhaps it could suggest that there were civilizations that existed long before the one that we know so well? Well, I'll let you be the judge of that. However, if you do happen to look at some of these places I've mentioned tonight, then perhaps maybe somewhere in there, when you're looking into it, you might even start talking about it with others. And in it, I'm hoping, somewhere, you might start talking about it with me. Where else? Friday Night Dark at nitrax.com. Hey, this is Drew, and I bid you good night.